The world was just one day away from the most dangerous economic confrontation in modern history. I mean a confrontation if it had actually erupted. The dollar would have collapsed, energy markets wouldn't increase, and gold prices would have risen to levels the world has never seen before. But what happened suddenly? Something happened that may have changed everything. A secret deal occurred today between Trump and the Chinese president in South Korea. The agreement, in fact, did not end this war, did not end this major confrontation, but rather postponed it to a specific time. And that time is 1 year. It means it's a tactical truce between Washington and Beijing, with each side quietly making its plans for the next strike. What really happened behind the scenes? Why did Trump agree to this truce? Why did China want this truce as well? We'll answer all these questions today. Stay with us. Dear viewers, peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. Welcome to today's episode in this renewed meeting, God willing, from the series of Opinion Today, dear viewers. Everyone should know that we were facing a historic day, a decisive day just before the start of the major confrontation between America and China. The American president, if everyone remembers, President Trump, just a few weeks ago, I think 3 weeks, suddenly announced that he would impose tariffs on Chinese products at a rate of 100% starting from the beginning of next month, November. Trump had threatened China with the start of a real trade war, and he set the date for the beginning of this war as the start of November. But he is also a politician, a negotiator, so at the same time he left room for a possible political agreement to spare the world this major confrontation. He also threatened to set a date to meet with the Chinese president, and he scheduled this meeting just 1 day before announcing the start of this confrontation. And indeed, today there was a meeting between the two sides, a meeting between Trump and the Chinese president, which took place in South Korea, which hosted the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum Summit. Trump said a week ago that there is still time to back down from this major confrontation in case of what? In case China responds to America's demands. Today, after a meeting between the two sides that lasted for about an hour and 45 minutes, an agreement was reached. In fact, it's an agreement that will not end this trade war, it will not end this major confrontation, but it postpones it for only 1 year, and it can also be postponed further. So, the agreement came, as I will explain to you today, it came to benefit both sides, it came to achieve the goals of both sides together. What is in this agreement? First, it stated that America will not raise tariffs on Chinese products by 100%. A 100% rate doesn't exist. In fact, more than that, it decided to lower these tariffs from 57%, which is currently imposed, to 47%. Therefore, this is beneficial for Chinese exports to America, and thus it does not achieve China's goals completely. But at least it ensures not reaching 100% or another high rate. It guarantees a reasonable rate. There may not be significant damage to the volume of Chinese exports to America. That's one aspect. Also, we find that America has decided to reduce tariffs on some Chinese products from 20% to 10%. There are Chinese products that America needs, so America needs them to reach America at low prices. For example, when it comes to iPhones, America used to impose only 20% on them, but now it said it will impose only 10%. Also, we find that America has also decided to remove all restrictions that used to prevent American companies from exporting electronic chips, especially those related to artificial intelligence, to China. Therefore, this decision will give China the opportunity to develop artificial intelligence programs more and more. Then we also find that it has decided to remove the tariffs that were imposed at American ports on Chinese ships. This is exactly what America will commit to according to this agreement for a whole year. Now, what is the return? What will China commit to in return for that? Here we find first and foremost the most important American demand. It is that China will commit throughout this year to lifting the restrictions that were preventing the export of rare natural minerals to America. The minerals that America strongly needs today, the minerals without which nothing related to civil or military technology can be manufactured. Without them, electric cars can't be made, a range of armored vehicles and tanks can't be produced, and so on. China produces 70% of the world's rare natural minerals, while the remaining 30% comes from dozens of other countries. There's America, there's Burma, there's Australia, there's Nigeria, Thailand, India, and Russia. That means dozens of countries produce 30% of these rare minerals, while China alone produces 70%. And just so everyone knows, if China produces 70% of them, today it controls 90% of global production. Because even when we find production of a certain material in an African country or elsewhere, who do we find as the buyer? We find that the buyer is China. China is the one extracting it from the mines, and it is the one buying it. So today, it controls 90% of global production, and of course, we are talking about very important minerals. We are talking about minerals that are essential for industrial and technological development, whether civilian or military. We are talking exactly about the future, both the near and distant future. So now we can say that America will be breathing a sigh of relief for a whole year. Why? Because at least it has secured access to these rare natural minerals for a whole year, which means saving the American industrial complexes, whether military or civilian. Similarly, we also see the reverse. For China's progress is that China will also commit to buying huge quantities of this agricultural product. Soybeans, or what is called today in Morocco soja. Recently, after the start of this trade war that Trump launched against China, China responded by stopping the import of soybeans from America, and this decision was causing huge losses for farmers in America. Why? Because in the world there isn't any country or any region capable of buying these huge quantities of soybeans that used to go from America to China. China is a huge consumer market. We're talking about more than 1.4 billion people. China used to buy the American production of this product, I mean in huge quantities. So now China has decided to resume importing this product from America for a whole year as well. What this means here is that Trump may have solved this problem that was putting him at odds with the farmers, and we're talking about the approach of the elections. Also, there are other things that China has not yet committed to in this agreement, but it made promises in case this agreement was developed, meaning in case the United States offers China other gains that China wants. China said then, I'm ready to buy very large quantities of oil and gas produced by the American state of Alaska. And of course this, as everyone knows, will never be at the expense of Russian oil and gas, because as everyone knows, China has long been following a very carefully planned strategic policy, a strategy that really suggests it is preparing for something serious ahead. For a long time, China has been buying products made from raw materials and natural resources in massive quantities that exceed its actual immediate needs. For a while now, it has been buying raw materials even though it doesn't need them and storing them. At that point, it buys and stores oil, gas, gold, copper, coal, iron, and so on, including rare natural minerals as well, like cobalt, lithium, and nickel. So China has reached a level where today it has a large surplus of money. It hasn't used it to buy English football clubs or anything like that, but instead it is using it today to buy and store these raw materials. It has a dangerous plan to monopolize future industrial production. China is actually preparing for something serious that's coming. It knows that a major war is inevitable. It knows that the issue of annexing Taiwan is settled. We can never go back on this goal. This goal is definitely coming. And if China enters a war, it might find it difficult then to import such raw materials. Today, it is capable of manufacturing everything, but it can't do that without raw materials. So it is not afraid of any sanctions in this regard, especially those related to industry or otherwise. But it knows very well that these sanctions will then include the financial sector. As I explained to you in the previous episode, the financial sector, and they will also include the supply of raw materials. So what is it doing today? It has taken steps in the financial sector, such as relying on its own financial transfer system instead of the American Society for Worldwide Interbank Financial Telecommunication System, and it has started converting bonds, loans, and so on to the Chinese yuan instead of the dollar. And as I explained to you in the previous episode, they also started stockpiling raw materials. So today, for example, it now has reserves that exceed a full year's needs of these natural resources. And it is still increasing the size of these reserves today. But when we talk about oil, for example, it only has reserves that don't exceed 2 or 3 months. So it still has, you see that it still has a lot of work to do to increase this amount. It still wants to buy a huge amount of oil, so it can't do without Russian oil, and at the same time, it also wants to. It means to buy oil from other sources, from other countries, like for example in America. Alaska oil, this oil will also help it reach the numbers it aspires to today. So what is China saying today? It says, okay, Trump came to us, he wants to make a deal, so let's work with this deal, but it's a deal limited to just 1 year. Meaning, it is only postponing this major confrontation for another year, and also postponing the plan to invade Taiwan for another year until it is completed. This means that this is a strategic plan. You could say it's a temporary tactical truce with America, a truce. It guarantees China artificial intelligence chips, meaning it gives them more time to accelerate self-sufficiency in technology, especially in these electronic chips, and it guarantees China more storage. For rare natural resources, it gives China more time to convert its money from dollars to the Chinese yuan. So after a year, we'll see where China has reached. If it needs more time, it will renew the agreement for another year maybe, or for another 6 months, or something else. If it's fully ready, it won't renew this agreement, and it will start and announce the major confrontation. Some might ask, why Trump? Does he know all this? Why did he make this agreement? And he knows that China needs this agreement. He knows that China, achieves its goals through this agreement. The truth is that even America, even Trump needs this agreement. Because first, the American economy is going through a very sensitive phase. Trump now wants economic stability at this stage. He originally does not want to impose tariffs on China at these rates, 100%, because this would harm the purchasing power of the American citizen. And as we talk about the upcoming elections, Trump brought in thousands of billions of dollars, meaning industrial investments from a number of countries, from Japan, from Saudi Arabia, and so on. But these investments cannot be realized on the ground without natural resources, without securing the rare natural resources that China monopolizes today. They also cannot be realized on the ground. And the country is in a trade war with China, meaning it's not in Trump's interest today to have any confrontation with China at this stage, especially, as I said, with the midterm elections. In America, the elections are just around the corner. He doesn't want to hurt his popularity domestically. Right now, he has a plan to sweep these elections. And especially here as well, when we talk about the farmers, those who were greatly affected by this conflict with China, now after this agreement, it's certain that the farmers will see that Trump has actually fulfilled his promise. Also as well, Trump wants to break through this alliance that is now forming between China and Russia. He is putting this agreement only as a first step, as a prelude. As a key to China, he wants through this agreement to bring China to America's side. to distance it from Russia, to keep it away from any possible alliance with the Russians, from any idea of establishing a new multipolar world order. There are Chinese motives and there are American motives as well. That's how politics works. They have only postponed the date of the clash, postponed the date of this confrontation until the end of next year. Maybe they postponed it for 9 months or 12 months or something like that. And of course, if this agreement is followed, new developments, conflicts or goals could still arise at any time, potentially restarting the confrontation. So now we will see whether this agreement will be upheld or not. And let us know your answers in the comments below this video. Subscribe now and hit the like button. Peace be upon you and God's mercy and blessings. See you next time.